Welcome to the next part in this Pyramid Head cosplay build series. In this episode, we're finishing the helmet. Everything from paint, mounting hardware, and all the accessories. As I had mentioned in my previous video, I have a template for this helmet free on my website. In that video, I go into detail about the differences and design changes in the helmet between the original and in the remake. But the dimensions of the helmet are relatively the same between the two, so the template can be used for both. Link to all that stuff is in the description. As for right now, I'm still looking for James. At the end of the last episode, he fell off the roof. Watch out, that floor is slippy.
You liar!
I was able to find where he landed. Huh. But he's gone. Hope he's okay. Anyway, on to the build. Okay, I believe we are done and ready for paint. So, before I can do that, I have to seal everything up and then seal it again and then paint it. Normally, what I like to do is any imperfections, I'll hit it real quick with some quick seal, and really water it down. Technique wise, I'll take a cup of water, some of this crap, and some rubber gloves, and I'll try and water the quick seal real thin and just get it in the gaps. So any kind of cracks and corners or kind of seams that kind of didn't, flush out too well, anything to smooth that kind of stuff out, any of my imperfections. As far as the intentional imperfections, I'm probably going to leave all that alone. As far as anything else, the little tentacle thingy that I put up top, it did deflate just a little bit right here, if my crappy lighting can show. Not terrible, but it is what it is. Alright, let's do this. This process was super easy. I wasn't that concerned about runs or clumps because that would just add texture. So I just squirted my quick seal all over the helmet, mostly in the corners and seams, then got my gloves wet and smoothed out the seal. I made sure to pay extra attention to the edges of the bottom trim as well, because these were multiple layers of foam, all sanded smooth, and some seam lines were a little noticeable here and there. And that's exactly what this pass a quick seal is supposed to be for. And with all that dried, I took everything outside and gave it a coat of Plasti Dip. Alright, we're finally ready for paint. I'd already started painting the sword, knife, whatever, first, just as kind of like a testing ground. Learned a couple things. I'd end up having to redo it, but I'm going to go ahead and start this while things are drying with the knife. That said though, this is it primed. Yeah, I don't know. Let's see how bad this goes. And so the paint process begins. To be honest, I didn't really have a plan here. I wanted to recreate the original colors as much as possible, so I had to really study how these colors were layered in the texture work. I figured this was going to take multiple passes regardless of what I did though, until I was happy. And spoilers, I'm never happy. I started with a metallic bronze. This wouldn't really be seen or noticeable in the end, but it did let me test the waters on brush techniques, and it helped make the helmet and its textures easier to see while painting. Up next were these tan splotches. I'm not sure what they are in the original model, but they're there, so I wanted them here. This first pass was more of just a reference for later, so I knew exactly where everything was. This pass gets mostly covered up, and I come back to it in later passes. Also, from here on out, I'm mostly using sponges to paint with. After that, I mixed up a dark red with some metallic copper. For some reason, I thought this was going to give me a metallic looking dark red, but for some reason, it gave me a pink instead. But I'd already started it, so I had to follow through. Once that was done, it looked alright, so I moved on to the next color, a much more brighter and vibrant red. Still using a sponge to paint, I made sure to only hit the high points and the flat spots. Any corners were left alone, because that's where dirt would be building up. And this process repeated itself once again, with another slightly lighter red, only highlighting the peaks and key features to make things pop. And then came the black. Still using a sponge, I tried my best to replicate where the buildup of black was on the game's texture work. I focused on the corners as well to help bring out those features. And from there, I went back to the tan and retouched the spots from before, trying to get as close to the original texture work as I could. Obviously, getting it 100% was impossible, but as long as I followed the general locations of buildup, I was okay with it. From there, it was just an artistic guesswork as to what felt right. I also hit the airbag hose with this as well, as it's on the original version. And the first pass of paint looks okay, kinda. And finally, the clear coat. I used Mod Podge because it was freezing outside and I didn't want to go out there. This stuff is kinda like Elmer's glue. It's an old school technique for clear coat. It goes on white and it dries clear. Spoiler alert, I didn't like the end result after this dried. It makes the helmet way too shiny. And in hindsight, I should have used something else. I thought I did have matte clear, but all I could find in the house was this gloss. It's no big deal though, this helmet wasn't done being painted yet anyway. As you can see, it's already starting to dry clear, and it's very, very glossy. I go into detail on this in the previous video, so I won't spend too much time on it here, but all the monsters in the original game are very glossy. They're either wet or slimy. You take your pick. But in the case of Pyramid Head, his helmet is what's glossy. In the remake, however, the colors are more toned down and muted, and it has more of a rusted texture. And because we're basing this on the original version, gloss is what we want. However, the gloss that I was applying was a little overwhelming, so I had to give it a second pass to try and tone it down some. Oh, hey, there he is. Hey, James. You okay? That was a pretty bad fall back there.
It's you.
Don't run. I just want to show you this cool stuff I made. Why are you running? Why are you running? I can't believe he ran off like that. again. So, you from around here?
Yeah.
And on to round 2 of hand painting. I started with black first and touched up all the corners. I also kept referencing the in-game model to try and get my black splotches as close as I could to the original. Once I was okay with that, I then went on to the rest of the colors again. I redid some of the reds to help bring out a few highlights. And then I went back to the tans, which I'd kind of covered up more than I wanted to in the previous passes. Now that the helmet's finished, only thing left to paint now is the airbag in the back of the neck. Thought I saw James walk in this place, but I don't see him anywhere. It's almost like he disappeared into a wall. Huh. Maybe he did disappear into a wall. And last but not least, the airbag. This was a little harder to paint because I wanted to get as close to the reference as I could, but I just couldn't make out what some of these stains even were on the model. So instead, I chose to just focus on color concentration, just like with a helmet. I started with the base coat of black, then worked my way up in colors. Dark brown, medium brown, reds, and light tan. Then to make it a little bit more unnatural, I went back over it again with a sponge and hit up those concentrations to really rough up the color blends. End result looked pretty dirty. I liked it. And everything's painted. Up next, we'll be putting everything together and start working on fitment. Whoa. Did he jump down here too? Trippy. And so began the first step of many for fitment. As I described, I hot glued some elastic to the inside of the helmet, and then glued the other end of the elastic to the airbag. I then gave it a test fit. Fitment seemed pretty decent, but I needed to work on securing the helmet. And my next decision ended up making the fitment process about 10 times longer than it needed to be. Man, where in the world is he going? Originally, I'd made a cap out of foam for inside the helmet, but it wasn't going to be tight enough to keep the helmet secure. I was going to need something else. I feel like I need some safety gear for all these jumps. Like a helmet. Because the skate helmet has all that support material, that then means that to make it fit properly inside the helmet, I was going to have to remove everything inside that I'd already made. I did this in phases, cutting out some, trying it on, over and over to make sure I didn't cut off too much. But even after removing a lot of foam, it was apparent that the helmet was still sitting too high off my shoulders now. So, time for another idea. Okay, so I am currently test fitting, trimming. I'm noticing a few things, and it's very, very obvious, and I was aware of it from the start. The fact that this is, in fact, thicker than just my head alone. What I have in there was fit to my head, so I had to carve out this much thickness all around, more or less. So to make sure everything is okay, I'm cutting something out, trying it on, taking a quick recording to see, so I can see how it looks. As of right now, it still has to come down and come forward, which means I need to cut more from the top and out of the back. I was at my limit of cutting foam from the inside, and the helmet still sat too high. From here, my only other option was to carve into the skate helmet. So the process continued, more cutting, more test fitting. And once I was semi-happy, I glued the skate helmet inside with some hot glue. Up next, we'll be answering a question I've had a lot during this build. How do I see out of this? I've seen it done a couple different ways. One of the most common ones is they will take an entire panel and replace it with a mesh. To me, that kind of breaks the whole look of the helmet, and you can usually see the person inside as well. To me, it doesn't really work. Or they'll punch a bunch of holes in the helmet and then take some spackle and use that around the outside to cover the holes. I have two problems with this though. One, visibility, still terrible. And two, the spackle kind of goes against my interpretation of what that texture actually is on the helmet. I go into detail this in my previous episode. Check the timestamps, should be under texture. So what's my options then? What I'll be using is an endoscopic camera that then plugs into my phone. I'll then be making a phone mount inside the helmet so that I can use that as my display. Hiya, James. I think you forgot somebody back at the hospital.
Oh yeah. Later.
Can you believe that guy? What a jerk. Alright, so it's been a while since I've actually touched this thing. There's two things left to do that I want to do. First of all, I need to be able to see. The best solution I had for that, I bought one of these. This is an endoscopic camera, and it's fairly rigid. So the idea is I'm going to have the camera sticking like right here. So it's not going to be very hard to notice, hopefully. Kind of like that. And then that will then wrap up to my camera, or my phone, and then I'll have a mount for that on the inside here. So when I have this on, I can just look at the camera on my phone, see out the front. Probably won't be perfect, but at least be doable. Downside of that, I don't know how I'm gonna record that, because I need my phone constantly in there to make up a jig for that and all that other stuff. So I don't know, either I'm gonna cut straight to it being done, or you'll see bits and pieces. I started by making a phone case out of foam. I left an opening in the front for usage, and used Velcro on the side to make sure it stayed in. I then cut out a section underneath the helmet to allow the camera to come out through. One thing that I didn't show, to make sure that the image on my phone would be level, I also tested out the camera. I rotated the camera until the image of my phone was straight and even. I then used a marker and marked the top dead center of the camera. This way I knew what side was facing up when installing it into the helmet. And with that all cut out, I ran the camera through and bent the wire to the right angle for visibility. Before I could go any farther with that, I then moved on to installing the mounting hardware for the phone case. This was just a single piece of 10mm foam that fit inside the helmet. The case itself will be attached via Velcro. That way I can remove the phone when needed without removing it from the phone case. With that all done, I moved back to the opening for the camera to make sure it was nice and secure. While the wire is stiff, it still had a tendency to jiggle just a little bit. So to make sure it wouldn't go anywhere while wearing it, I made a small block to help hold it still and glued that in place. Up next is another design change missing in the remake. In the original, underneath the helmet, there's a black organic membrane that connects from the corners of the underside of the helmet down to the neck along the collarbone. Just like his apron, this portion is now open and exposed. Ito has mentioned in the past that this piece under the helmet wasn't part of his original design, stating that his original idea involved metal frameworks on the inside. The remake more accurately represents the original idea that he had, as the front is open, and you can now see a metal framework when examining the model. Ito has mentioned that this portion of the helmet was added by another member of the team, but to me, that's kind of the point. This whole game is a collaborative process. He creates the initial creature design, and then it moves along throughout the team. As story changes, so does symbolism. As symbolism changes, so does creature design. The original Pyramid Head is fully enclosed in his form. Just like the Flesh Lips, the Lying Figure, or the Abstract Daddy, none of them are wearing these things. It's a part of what they are. This is made even more evident when you take into consideration in the original game, the front panel of Pyramid Head's helmet would open up like a mouth, letting out a black tongue. This design change in a remake to open up the apron and the helmet removes that connection that Pyramid Head had with the other creatures in game by making him more human, when the intent in the original game was to create a contrast between Pyramid Head and the monsters with Maria. That way when we had the reveal of Maria being a monster, it was a lot more shocking, because she was the only human creature compared to the rest. I already went in depth on this subject in my previous video, so anyway, this portion's from the original game, so it's what's going on the helmet. So, what I need then is something to kind of go from here, to there, to there, to there, to there, to there, there. What I was looking for, fabric-wise, was something kind of rubbery, stretchy, dark, but also had like a mild shine to it. Now, unfortunately, I've been dragging this project out for too long to the point that Joann Fabrics is no more. So I had to go to Walmart Fabrics, which is, I wish was no more. And I found this. What this is dancewear. Sure, but bright side is it has a very similar feel to some of that Yaya Han fabric. So it's very stretchy in all directions. So it feels breathable, but it also has a very like mild shininess to it. And that's exactly what I want, because that's exactly kind of what he has. So I have to figure this out first things first. I am not just gonna glue it on there. I need something to actually attach. So my thought was I'm going to make a framework out of 3mm foam. What I'll do then is somehow find a way to maybe sew this to this and then glue this to the helmet, I think. This template only required a few pieces of tape to outline the shape needed. In the original model, there's no start point for the underside of the helmet, it more or less just morphs into being, making it almost organic rather than a bag. So I just took it out close to the ends. With that taped out, I then transferred that to a sheet of 3mm foam. With that cut out, I then laid down my fabric and started figuring out how much I needed. The fabric sags at the throat, so I pulled extra in the center and then trimmed off the excess and then pinned everything up to get ready to be sewn. And over to the sewing machine we go. This wasn't hard to sew. Your basic sewing machine can handle up to 5mm foam with no problem. My only word of advice is that the thicker you go, the more you might want to spread out your thread in your machine settings. With that all done, I removed the pins and gave the foam a coat of contact cement. With the glue dry, I then pressed it all together and then gave the helmet one more test fit. Okay, so that turned out really good. It's a hair snug. I wish it was a little bit looser at the bottom center, but that said, it gets the exact look that I want. I like it. I really do like it. If I could, I probably would have redone it just to make it just a little bit baggier, but I think it's fine. Which means, is it done? Might be done, I don't know. Yeah, I think it might be done. And with that, the helmet's done. You already got to see it at the end of the last 2 episodes, so now you get to see it again.
Sure is quiet here, huh? I'm kind of lost. Is this the right way?
Do you know what it does to you, James, when you're ignored or feared just because of the way your costume looks, after you've been working on it your whole frickin' life? That's why you ran away after you saw my crafts. Ran away like a scared little girl. Yeah, I made this costume. It was fun. I tried to craft my guts out. It's finally done, all made out of foam. And then you came at me. I wanted to show you too, but you cried and ran along. You're gonna have a hard time running once you see what's left of my cosplay.
Don't be ridiculous. You need help.
Don't get all holy on me, James. You can make costumes too. Your helmet could be the same. I made a template for other people. Don't you know that? Let's cosplay! Guess I should have locked this door too. Well, there's always next time. Well, I guess that's it for this episode. Up next, cover the apron. See you in the next one.